People watch it.
It depends on the week.
Or average, I guess.
Oh, sometimes it's up to like 30 or something.
Quite enough.
So it depends. Sometimes 12. Well, welcome. We are talking about the tree of life as one of our first themes as we look at major themes in the Bible. And so just to get us started, what do you think is the most frequently mentioned living thing in the Bible?
Living thing?
Living thing in the Bible.
Trees,
Birds.
Donkeys.
Okay.
The earth.
animals, and
The earth, animals,
Fish.
fish.
people.
People.
Living things.
People are the number one most talked
Oh.
about living thing in the Bible.
Kind of a trick question.
Yeah, but they were made out of earth.
Yeah, that's true.
It's true. The earth is probably
You're
the
technically
most
correct.
accurate then. And the second is trees.
Trees.
So trees show up about 811 times in the Bible.
Wow.
And that does not include when trees are specifically named as particular trees. So it's
Oh.
even more that
May I
they
have a
show up.
pencil,
Why doesn't it include
please? Thank you so much.
Because it just that would be very hard to
Oh,
look,
it's too many?
look them all up.
Oh, okay.
And
Like
get
when they're
that
naming
number.
trees or something?
So like the word tree shows up
Oh.
293 times.
Oh, rather than specific
Yeah.
title. Oh, I got
rather than looking up the poplar tree and the
you. Yeah.
birch tree.
I thought you said 811.
Yeah, so
It's a
things
lot.
related with tree. Fruit
Ah,
shows up 212 times. Branch shows up 107 times. Root shows up 57 times. Forest shows up 51 times. Vine shows up 72 times. Leaf shows up 19 times. And so that total would be 811 times that trees or parts of trees are showing up in the Bible, excluding when they're specifically named as a variety of tree. And that's from the NIV, the count in the NIV. So trees obviously must be important because they show up all like humans, number one, but then in the way the Bible is written, but the trees are the next most common thing discussed in the Bible. So let's start in whenever we do Bible study seems to be our favorite book, Genesis, right in the beginning, to get us some context. And so if you want to flip to Genesis 1 and 2, I know a lot of you know these stories. So what happens in this story? Where do trees show up in Genesis 1 and 2?
The apple tree.
The apple tree. Okay, so there's an apple tree or some type of fruit tree.
In the creation story, I mean.
How do trees show up in the creation story?
God creates trees.
God creates
Every kind
trees.
of tree or something like that.
God creates every kind of tree.
Somewhere in-
So every kind of tree shows up in Genesis. How else do trees show up? How do trees show up in Genesis?
in Genesis.
fully grown,
Tree of
fruited.
life or whatever.
There's just one they gotta stay away from.
Fully grown, fruited, and there's one they're supposed to stay away from.
Tree of life.
Okay.
Right.
There's the tree of life. What other tree?
Tree of the knowledge of good and evil.
And there's a tree of the knowledge of good and evil.
Are they the same tree?
No.
They're not.
Noah probably built an ark out of a tree.
Yeah. So then if we go further in
Something.
Genesis,
Is it-
we see trees around the Noah story.
Cypress?
So we've got this tree of life, tree of knowledge of good and evil. We've got trees just showing up. There's fruit on them. God
Trees just
creates
showing
them. There's like a lot of trees in the creation stories, both of them. So let's jump ahead. Exodus, the book of Exodus, chapter 3. This is the story of Moses and Moses' call story. Where does a tree show up here?
burning bush.
The bush.
The burning bush.
Or-
Yeah, which is a burning bush tree. And a little baby tree
Yeah, I guess so.
calling to Moses. So we've got Exodus 3. How about if we jump ahead a little further to the Psalms?
Oh.
Psalm chapter 1.
They're like trees planted by flowing water.
Oh, what's like trees?
Those who delight in the law of Yahweh, mine says. Happy people.
So Psalm 1 says, happy people are like trees planted by streams of water, which yield their fruit in its season. In their leaves do not wither. In all that they do, they prosper.
Oh. So that's,
They sure show up in the, like Jesus' stories later on. Seems like there's a lot of trees.
Well, let's go to John then. John
Alright.
15.
Uh-huh.
And I don't know half of them are, so I just sort of picture some.
On what?
15?
John 15.
Says John, I am the real vine.
So I would call a vine a tree.
Okay,
Obviously,
so there's some debate.
There's
if the
something about
vine is really a
branches.
It's got
tree.
branches on it.
It's a vine with branches.
Yeah, so what is it? What's the whole thing say about the vine? What's that whole verse?
I am the true vine and my father is the vine grower.
Okay,
Yeah.
And mine's, I'm a true grapevine,
Oh.
and my
more
father
specific.
is the gardener.
Mine's the Abba. not the Abba.
Yeah. And it's the gardener.
But he cuts off every branch that doesn't bear fruit.
And prunes, yeah.
so we've got a vine that has branches, and the branches in this one can be cut
Mhm.
off.
Mm-hmm.
There's fruitful ones.
There's also fruitful ones.
They get pruned.
And so who's the tree or the vine or the branches?
God,
in here?
Got
Ah.
the
the
Lord
gardener.
The true one.
Abba.
Okay,
And Jesus is the vine
Yeah.
or the grapevine. Mhm.
how about, let's go Gospel of Matthew. Matthew chapter 13. I know I'm testing your knowledge of where the biblical books are
I
tonight.
think we got some of
Matthew
these
chapter.
really
a
bad.
little better than
13.
you.
Yeah,
Matthew 13.
Matthew
Oh, I
chapter
have the word
13.
roots written here.
Okay.
Where do we see trees in here?
Soil. Talking about
Soil.
plants that
Um,
fall away.
It looks like
You got the mustard seed that grows into the,
in
Big
3.
A mustard seed grows into a big tree.
Hmm.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. The
What a
message
mustard
produces
seed?
no fruit.
A mustard plant is not really considered a tree.
So it's a different variety of mustard seed that grows in that area where it actually is a tree.
Oh.
It actually,
Yeah.
I did not know.
We were talking a lot about that at a Bible study. We were like,
Mm.
it's really just a little tiny like
Well,
shrub.
it's like
I mean, it's big
kochia,
shrub,
you
but
know, it
still.
like
It's more of a shrub than a tree.
yeah.
But there is a variety that grows in that area that
Mm.
looks a lot more like a tree.
And maybe their grapevines are a lot more tree-like.
Maybe.
Everything was apparently bigger.
So in
Well, I
this
mean, they
one,
get woody.
in Matthew, what's the tree? What's it likened to?
Um, Mine, crop.
I'm started with the seeds, but I haven't found the tree yet.
There's the
No
mustard.
fruit.
It might be talked about differently as like a shrub in some
What
Bibles.
verse are you on? Can't even find a shrub.
It's the mustard seed grows
Okay.
into.
The kingdom of heaven. It's like a mustard seed.
Oh, yeah. Seed sprouted. Oh,
So somehow
I don't know.
it's related to God.
Um, if you went back to Genesis
Hmm.
about the trees, see, I have given you every plant yielding seed that is upon the face of all the earth, and every tree with seed in its fruit. You shall have them for food. So I think seeds count quite a bit. And what was the question about the mustard seed
Yeah.
or the bush?
So we have two places tree is showing up. That's great, Camille. We've got in the seed, and then we have where it actually grows.
Yep.
Into
Mhm,
a tree
mhm,
of a form.
mhm. Yep.
It's a big.
Yeah.
And yeah, I think the seed represents receiving some knowledge or understanding of your relationship with God and what you do with that knowledge. Do you really study it and let it grow and let it nurture you, or do you just hear it and, oh, that is terrific, but I got other things to do? And then you hear it, it impresses you, but you just don't go there. It was a one-time only impression. So it,
The different
it-
ways, the
yeah.
different soils. Yeah,
yes,
the way.
yeah.
Yeah.
Mhm.
I had a teacher professor that said, remember, he was talking about kids like they were nuts, right? And don't forget the tree is in the seed.
Yeah,
And be like,
precisely,
so you
precisely.
gotta wait while they're still nuts, but the tree is in there.
Mhm, mhm,
That's good.
mhm. Yeah, yeah.
Got by with gone kids nuts.
Let's go to Acts. So Acts chapter 5, verse 30. And this is just a sample in Acts.
A death tree.
The death tree.
Is that the very beginning?
Just a sec.
Where is it?
Chapter
Verse 30.
5, verse
Yeah, I
30.
got it. But I haven't read it.
Chapter what?
Acts chapter 5, verse 30.
Yeah, that's what I thought you said. Wow.
Oh,
Somebody want to read theirs?
that doesn't speak.
The God of our ancestors has raised Jesus, whom you put to death by hanging him on a tree.
Mine says hanging on a cross.
Oh,
Really?
So throughout Acts,
lost the tree.
the tree is used a lot to describe the cross. And
Mhm.
so much so that different translations sometimes just translate it as cross. And some
Mhm.
translate it as tree.
5 verse 3.
So
Oh.
interchangeably in Acts.
Well, made out of wood, I suppose.
Mhm,
Hanging on wood.
Some kind of tree wood.
mhm.
Huh.
You know what the Hungarian cross looks like?
What's
A
that?
what?
The Hungarian cross. It looks like a tree.
Really?
Mhm.
Well, in one of my commentaries, it's been so long, I don't know which one. It was explained that the tree was at street level. People could spit on Jesus, smack him, whatever, and it was a little tree. And there was a legend that the tree was so sad it was used for that purpose. It curved in on itself and couldn't be used for that purpose anymore. I thought that was a really nice story.
It's Bernie, this picture is almost as good as yours, but oh, probably can't. Oh, sorry.
Pretty tree-ish.
In
Mhm.
Germany during World War II, there were Hungarians that were, I want to say it was near Heidelberg. Are you familiar?
Yes, I've been to Heidelberg.
And that a bunch of Hungarian workers got cloistered in a church. I don't know if it was Heidelberg, but the crucifix, when the town got bombed, the crucifix fell and these workers wanted to thank the people at the church for, keeping them. And so they built their cross, which was a tree with branches, and then they hung the plaster Jesus on that, and it's still there. But
Oh,
I can't remember if it was
wow.
Heidelberg or
Wow.
which church it was in. But they also put there was a stained glass image of Sister Teresa,
A
Like-
little flower.
Like Saint,
Saint,
the old one or the new one?
the new one, Saint Teresa, before she
Mother
became
Teresa?
a Mother Teresa,
Mother
before
Teresa.
she became a saint.
I think she's fast tracked.
Yeah.
Yeah.
She,
Blessed Teresa to Mother to Saint Teresa.
Yeah.
Fast track.
Yeah, well, that's
Yeah,
true. That's
she
a true
was.
fact.
Yep.
Oh, yeah.
They got
yeah.
fast tracked to sainthood.
Yeah.
Huh.
So what are the layers of symbolism that the Bible places on trees?
All of them.
Well,
All of them.
all of them. So like, what are all of them?
A life,
Okay.
a beginning life, sustenance,
Wisdom,
nurturing,
Growth,
growth,
death,
death. Yeah,
all those parables.
yeah.
Connection to God.
Being
Abba.
done.
Connection.
Mm-hmm.
Right?
There's a lot placed on trees throughout that
Yeah.
trees symbolize
Yep.
throughout throughout the entire Bible, from beginning to end.
one that puzzled me a lot was when Jesus cursed the tree and said it will never bear fruit again.
Yes. Well, it was a parable. It was symbolic of
Mm-hmm.
something. Okay.
Or Jesus was hangry.
I mean, it was right before he got killed, right? I'm thinking he's like,
Maybe he was just angry.
this tree isn't gonna be the. I don't know.
Maybe that
But
It's a
saved,
trouble
maybe
in
that
it. That's
saved
it.
the
That's one
tree.
that's hard.
Yeah,
Well, let's go back to Genesis.
Okay.
he didn't kill a lot of trees.
He did not kill a lot of trees.
No. Poor people.
So Genesis chapter 1, verses 11 and 12. Anybody want to read it?
Chapter
1.
1, 11, 12.
Then God said, let the land sprout with vegetation, every sort of seed-bearing plant, the trees that grow seed-bearing fruit. These seeds will then produce the kinds of plants and trees from which they came. And that is what happened. The land produced vegetation of all sorts, seed-bearing plants and trees with seed-bearing fruit. Their seeds produced plants and the trees of the same kind, and God saw that it was good.
So what did trees produce?
Seeds, fruit,
Everything.
Fruit,
And
grain, con,
and things just like
Plants.
themselves.
yeah.
Plants?
Fruit trees.
everything.
And what do seeds do?
They hopefully sprout.
They hopefully sprout
And reproduce the tree.
and reproduce the tree. So trees are
Yeah.
self-generative. They generate life
Yeah. They respond to water.
and continue in that.
So,
And the trees are called to be what? The fruit trees of every kind on earth that bear fruit with seed in it.
Let's see.
Yep. So the trees are called to bear fruit
Mhm,
and produce seed.
mhm.
cycle of life.
Who else is called, if we continue on in the story, maybe you remember, who else is called to be fruitful?
Man,
Humanity.
Humanity
Humanity
like the trees.
Yeah, like the trees.
So lay your seed. Okay.
So trees are called to be
Yeah.
fruitful,
Mhm.
bear seeds, Humanity is called to be fruitful.
Mhm.
Now, which was created first in our first creation story?
Mm.
Trees.
Trees were.
Yeah. The trees were created first. And what happens without humans to trees?
They probably do a lot better.
Through a while.
That would actually spread seeds
Yeah.
by eating the fruit, moving it someplace else. The seeds get,
Mhm.
otherwise they just drop to the ground. Maybe an animal will carry it off. but
Yeah.
man, it's, you know,
Yeah,
Yeah.
my neighbor does not like the squirrels that take my apples and break them into
It
his
is,
yard.
But trees, so trees could survive without human beings,
Mm-hmm.
although there's
Birds,
a
because
mutual
yeah.
relationship with them.
Yes.
Mhm.
Now, how about if there are no trees, what happens to human beings?
They
gonna
would die.
Yeah.
We would die. Yeah. So
Not enough to eat.
what else was created on day 6?
Day 6?
Yeah, so let's jump ahead in this first creation story. Go to day 6, which is the day that human beings was created. What else is created on day 6?
Every beast on earth,
Every beast on earth.
birds of the air, everything that creeps on earth, every green plant for food.
He's giving. I give you a seed bearing plant.
Every tree with seed in its fruit, you shall
Mhm.
have them for food.
Okay.
So day 6, God said, let the earth bring forth living creatures of every kind, cattle and creeping things, and wild animals of the earth of every kind. And it was so. God made the wild animals of the earth of every kind, and the cattle of every kind, and everything that creeps upon the ground of every kind. And God saw that it was good. Then God said, let us make humankind in our image. So day 6, the creeping creatures of the earth.
Mhm.
And what do creeping creatures of the earth need to survive?
Seeds,
Like
food,
Oxygen
plants, oxygen,
from the trees
Mhm.
and the plants.
Vegetation.
vegetation. If
Mhm.
they're land animals, where are land animals?
They're on the ground.
They're on the ground.
They're eating the grass.
So, what day was land created?
That was
Well, we got the ground there.
I think he said, okay, dry
Oh.
ground.
the third day.
The third day.
Water and dry ground.
So, land was created on the third day. Land animals aren't
Yeah.
created till
Sixth
day
day.
6. Now, how about the 5th day? What's created on the 5th day?
Water
Hmm.
creatures.
Monsters.
Sea monsters. Sea monsters
Oh,
are
birds.
created, and birds. And where do sea monsters and birds live?
In the sky and in the sea.
And what day were sky and sea created?
Second day.
type
The 2nd day. Now, what was created on day 4? We'll just keep backing up.
The
Light.
yeah,
Lights.
light.
Lights, the sun, the moon, the stars. If you have the sun, moon, and stars, what do you need in order for those things to exist? For there to be lights, what do you need?
Source, something to reflect on.
Something to reflect on.
I don't know. Gas? Is it getting too scientific?
Gas.
I don't know.
I don't know where you're going.
What was so?
Do you need trees?
Well, you need
Is that
some
where we're
reflect-
going?
no,
Okay.
not to the trees.
Okay.
In order to there to be stars and moon, and you
Sky.
see them.
You need
Mhm.
matter.
You need darkness and you need light.
To
Yeah.
see the
When
light,
were
you need
those created?
darkness.
When was light created?
Was that the second? No.
That's the
That was
When-
Let there be light. There's light.
Yeah.
The first day. So we have in the creation story, day 1, 2, and 3. All the basics are created.
Yep.
And then days 3 or day 4, 5, and 6, it's parallel with that for day 1, on day 4, so day 1 is light. So then on day 4, the sun, moon, and stars are created, which cannot exist without light.
Oh.
On
yes,
day 2,
yeah.
That's true.
we've got the air and water is created. And day 5, the birds and fish are created. They cannot exist without having air and water to exist within. Day 3, land is created. Day 6, what's created? All the land creatures,
Animals.
all the animals and human beings. So what does it mean? Any ideas?
So what is rest parallel?
Rest is a day in and of itself.
Sabbath.
The rest of the week. When you're busy.
Yes.
Could any of the things on day 4, 5, and 6 exist if days 1, 2, and 3 had not happened?
No.
No. No. And so what we have in this first creation story is everything that's created later requires something that's been created earlier. It cannot exist without that which has already been created. So if we think through that, the most self-sufficient creation would be just light and darkness. It's not reliant on anything else. What is the least self-sufficient creation according to this first creation story?
The least what?
The least
The least-
self-sufficient creature.
Least self-sufficient.
Human
Human
beings.
beings.
Human beings rely on absolutely everything.
Everything.
Human beings are the least self-sufficient creation in all of creation, according to this Genesis 1 story. In the tree of life, they're being paralleled with this as well. So what's the purpose of trees? They're created earlier.
Well, they are responsible for photosynthesis, so the planet would have to have been oxygenated for humans to exist. God animated them by a breath of life, and that breath had to be continued, and the trees provided that stuff.
So the trees provide breath
Oh, yeah.
and air, and so they're sustain life.
Mhm.
And the trees are that which has seeds and is in this continual cycle of being self-sufficient and being able to produce life.
Mhm.
And human beings are being told, you should be like the trees in this. But remember, you're sufficient, like you are not self-sufficient, and you rely on every other aspect of creation at the same time.
But they were given dominion over it.
Oh,
So that's, they're given dominion over, a better translation is probably stewardship
Yeah.
of.
Because
More
they were
care.
food,
Mhm.
trees and animals were food for humans too. I mean, they couldn't survive without
we're
that.
supposed to
Yep.
be
Source of food.
Caretaker.
caretakers.
More like
Yes.
gardeners.
Mhm.
Yeah.
Gotcha.
But
But
some
they were,
Bibles do
okay,
say
they were
dominion.
given responsibility.
What does yours say?
Response. Yep.
Well, mine does say be responsible for, watch over the birds, the fish. the
What's that,
birds."
Joyce?
I said we haven't done a very good job.
No, yeah.
I
We're in
tried.
trouble.
Trees.
Later on in the Bible, it's in Isaiah. It says, "A broken covenant with God looks like an earth polluted beneath our feet."
Man.
And I think that brings us back to this opening creation story.
You know what I don't understand about that is that
Mhm.
the scientists are warning us, and that date that they say is crunch time is getting closer and closer and closer. Maybe we have multiplied the wrong kind of people too much.
Go forth and
You
multiply.
hear
Also-
so, you
Although
hear many different stories
What?
on this. And the other day I heard a guy ask just what was the concentration of carbon dioxide in our air? Because that's all they can think about now is to get rid of it. And he said, and the scientists were guessing like 7-8%. And the man that asked the question said, no, the answer is 0.04. So what do you believe? You know, the politicians on one side at 7 and 8 and the scientists at 400.
I should have started this.
Sources are really important to be able to look into and
Mhm.
check sources and to check multiple sources and to
Mhm.
see where research is coming from. Because there is a lot of false information available, and it's you need to be mindful and discerning about sources of information and use that critical reasoning and critical thinking,
Mhm.
those skills that
Mhm.
that hopefully we've learned throughout our lifetime and continue to develop it. But not just to take whatever a single person says at face value, but being able to really look into research and look into what's beneath it and also what are the motivations beneath it as well. And finding those reliable sources.
This is just sort of a weird aside, but all the time I was at Mary says, we fought against planting trees out there, Sister Thomas. And now it's kind of a joke, you know, because she wanted to be like the original
the view.
prairie,
Oh,
like the original prairie.
Oh,
So
There
keep
was
the
always people
grass
wanting them to
going.
plant more trees, well, to stop the wind
Wind.
and stuff.
yeah.
And she really fought against it, but there have been trees planted.
Yeah,
Just an interesting aside there. Yeah.
different parts of the
Became quite a
world,
topic.
they're different ecosystems, and so being mindful
Yeah.
of what the actual ecosystem
But
is.
also, you
in
know,
that area.
controlling wind is a reason to plant trees. You know, certainly the early farmers with their tree lines.
Oh my.
now they're tearing those
goodness.
up.
Yeah.
They're tearing them out?
Because
They're
there's
dying.
minimum till or zero
Yeah,
tillage.
Yeah,
And
mhm.
so the plants are making a mat. You'll notice where there's zero till
Mm.
farming practices, there's no wind blowing anything because it's just like you put a carpet of plants over the top of the soil.
Mm.
So like the grass
Mhm.
that's originally there,
Right,
and
the
you let
original
it
prairie
die,
grass,
and it,
yeah.
you know,
Oh, so those plants do not enrich the soil. They are keeping the soil from
Well,
becoming more
they do
productive.
both.
Sometimes.
No, not
Oh,
making it unproductive.
oh.
It is at the same time that it's decaying, it is also a mat that is dead.
Uh-huh.
And the reason they used to turn it over is because they thought, you know, seed to soil contact was necessary
Uh-huh.
by turning all the dead plant matter under.
Uh-huh.
Okay.
Uh-huh.
And
They
now
just plant
they're,
on top of it.
well, they can, there's
could-
more
they drill.
powerful
They
drills, yeah,
drill, they just drill.
that cut. So not a drill, okay, more
Yeah.
like a shovel that
Yeah.
gets pulled along
But
and
they call
cuts
it a
a,
drill.
or an eagle beak
Mhm.
or what, you know, that it's built more like a hoe or like an
Mhm.
arrow,
Mm-hmm.
and then it pulls in the ground, but you know, it had to be powerful enough and heavy enough, and
Yeah.
that's why tractors were bigger, because to
Isn't
pull
it-
some,
The
Oh.
greenest plants I almost ever saw were after the fire at Mary.
oh yeah,
Oh, yeah.
because
The
Oh,
way they came,
God.
we had never
yes.
seen such vibrant,
Oh,
you know,
Yeah.
months later. That was
Uh-huh.
amazing.
Like,
Uh-huh.
A lot of good nutrients in that.
Yeah, there
Yeah.
sure were, but for a while, you know, it had to look terrible.
Mhm.
but you
Yeah.
don't want to, you know, like there are places still that burn as a practice,
Yes,
and
they
it's
do,
like,
yeah.
I mean, you don't want to overdo any one thing either.
No, you don't.
So
Well, this is a perfect
balance.
transition into the second creation story.
Oh, yeah.
And so
Simpler.
with his Genesis chapter 2 and 3
Mhm.
in this second. Now I want to call your attention to Genesis chapter 2, verse 7. What does it say here?
The nostril
Genesis chapter 2, verse 7.
So Yahweh fashioned an earth creature out of the clay of the earth and blew into its nostrils the breath of life, and the earth creature became a living being.
And then, what does your Bible say?
And then
Into the
if you'd
garden.
also read Genesis 2, 8-9.
Yahweh planted a garden to the east in Eden, land of pleasure, and placed in it the earth creature that had been made. Then Yahweh caused every kind of tree, enticing to look at and good to eat, to spring from the soil. In the center of the garden was the tree of life and the tree of the knowledge of good and evil.
They were next to each other.
I guess so. I forgot.
I did too.
So where did Adam, the mud creature, the earth creature, come from?
From the mud.
From the mud, from the ground. In Hebrew, the min ha'adama, from the ground, of the ground. And where did the tree come from?
Ground.
The ground. Yep, it's the same phrase in Hebrew, the min ha'adama. So both the human and the tree comes from the ground, and the exact same phrase in Hebrew is being used, of the ground. So what do trees and humans have in common?
They come from the ground.
They come from the ground. What else?
You need the air to survive
They need air to survive.
and water,
They need sunlight,
water.
water.
They need someone to speak very softly and kindly to
Yeah.
them.
They need someone to speak very softly and kindly to them. When they listen to like
Yes.
happy music
Yeah,
than when
happy
they
music,
listen to
you
angry
bet.
music. So
Yeah. I do better when I hear nice music instead of that noise they call music.
what else do they have in common?
They have a life cycle.
They have a life cycle. Yep.
Beginning and an end.
Okay. Beginning and end,
Ah,
and
continuation
And-
through the seed.
and continuation through the seed. Yeah. So both of them have the capacity to give life.
Mhm.
Humans
Mhm.
and trees, the capacity to
Mhm.
give life.
Mhm.
They have the capacity to bless. Trees bless all of creation with the
Yes.
gifts they give.
Yes.
They have the capacity of knowledge. There's a tree of knowledge of good and evil. There's
Hmm.
this capacity of knowledge too.
So what happened to this smart tree?
So humans were created first in this story. That's
Yeah,
interesting.
this is interesting. So in this story, humans are created first,
Because
whereas the other story,
Mhm.
trees were created first.
There was no human being yet to till the soil, so they created a human.
But let's look at
Interesting.
the order again.
Huh.
So for this one, human beings created first. What do humans need to live in order of what the Bible is telling us in this story?
Needs trees, the fruit.
Breathe.
Trees, even before that, what do they
Breath.
need?
The breath of life.
And where does that come from?
God.
God into his nostrils the breath of life, and man became a living being.
The earth creature.
And then he planted the garden.
Right. So in this story, the first thing human beings need is God. The second thing that human beings need is food and air.
Yes. Interesting.
So
Mhm.
this story, what does it say about human beings' priorities?
These are important.
Humans are important. Okay.
But the first priority should be God.
First
Yeah.
priority should be God,
God is the
just
center.
in the
Yeah,
very
that's
way.
right, child.
God's the creator of human life. Not-
Then as we go on within the Bible takes all of this even further. So trees are from the ground, human beings are from the ground, and it keeps pulling this image again and again, further and further. So if you go a little further in Genesis, to Genesis chapter 15, verses 2-3.
About the descendants?
Yeah, so what plant imagery is used in this first?
What verses?
Genesis 15 verses 2 through
Good
3.
as long as my only heir is a four.
Genesis chapter 15.
Well, he has no offspring. So he has to have an attendant, a servant.
Talk about offspring.
I don't know. Or you mean, do you mean it's a metaphor or someone else? Yeah, they can.
15.
Did you say verse 2?
Yeah, and
Verse 2
because he
verse
doesn't have
2
any
and
of his
3.
own sons.
Talking about offspring. Giving him offspring.
Children.
Hmm?
Yep. Now, in some translations, and the word that's maybe translated a lot for offspring is actually seed.
Oh, sure.
I have no, has given me no seed.
Oh,
Okay.
And so so the seed imagery is being used here. So seed imagery is being related to children, to descendants.
mhm.
Mhm.
And if there's the seed, there's these descendants.
The poor servant.
And
He does not get to be there.
if we go on to Psalm 92. Verses 12 through 14.
So 90,
92.
92.
A cedar tree.
There's a palm tree, there's a cedar tree,
There's sap.
Planted in the house, Lord, and they will flourish.
they're flourishing, they're planted,
They bear fruit.
and they bear fruit. Yep.
What, 12
Psalm
and
92
I'm
verses
sure there's a
12
lot of
through
similar
14.
imagery. People bearing, plants bearing. We use a lot of the same words, that's for sure.
Yeah. And what is this fruit that's being talked about? In old age, they still produce fruit. They are always green and full of sap, showing that the Lord is upright. God is my rock, and there's no unrighteousness in God. What does the fruit relate to?
The righteous.
The just.
The just?
Mine says the just right away.
Mhm.
Flourish.
And grow like a cedar in Lebanon, which is known for its durability.
Yeah. And out of Lebanon came all the cedars. That's major cedar sale right there. That's where, if you were building something on a cedar, that's where you got it.
I mean, I think it'd be a compliment if you were of old age and someone said you were still full of sap.
You are sappy and old.
I love it. You're still full of sap.
You're still sappy.
It just means, you
Yeah,
know,
'cause
life.
You haven't just sat back and dried up.
No,
You're out there
you're,
doing
yeah.
stuff.
you
Yeah.
are sapping up life.
Mhm.
We're gonna bring this term back. Or maybe it was never there. We're gonna bring it.
Well, it used to be, you didn't want to be a sap, now you want to be.
Yeah,
sap.
that's right. Kind of negative.
So a well-lived life is equated to fruit. That
Yes.
these results of life
Yes.
is fruit in the midst of our life.
Yeah, like an inner vibrancy,
Mhm.
even as you age.
Yep.
And then if we go to Psalm 1. And we could go through,
The happy, is that
be
the
here
happy
for
one again?
hours looking at a whole bunch. The happy one again.
Yes, we could. There's trees everywhere.
There's trees everywhere in here. There's trees planted by the stream. There's
So all those parrots. Oh, Jesus talked a lot about trees.
Mhm.
They're like trees planted by the streams of water, which yield their fruit in its season, and their leaves do not wither. In all that they do, they prosper. What is this? It's liking it to happy people. What are the leaves in this? So they are like trees. They're like, the people are like trees, planted by streams of water. Must be like they're fed.
Mhm.
They yield fruit in its season, and we said fruit is like result of good life, and
Mhm.
their leaves do not wither. What are their leaves?
Is he talking about people? I'm going back to the first verses. How happy are those? And he's talking about people.
Yeah.
And so is that what he's talking like? This image of the trees and the people who, follow and don't, who follow the advice of, who don't follow the advice of the wicked.
Oh.
Or take the path. But their delight is in the law of the Lord. Is that going back to the leaves don't wither?
Yeah, I think so. So what's the Bible trying to tell us about plants and people?
There are a lot alike.
They're a lot
So
alike.
similar.
Yeah, plants and people are a lot alike. And what is the purpose of plants?
To sustain life for people.
To sustain life.
Mutual giving. Support.
Could be for people, although plants are created for people. So it may also be just
Well,
to
in the first
sustain life,
story.
period. In
In
the
the
first story.
second
In the
story.
second story, it's the other way around.
For
Mhm.
whatever reason. At this time too, you would see plants all the time. I mean, that's just a fact of history. Because
Right,
you lived by that food.
right.
I mean,
Mhm.
now they make stuff in laboratories, like like vegetarian meat, what I mean? Well, that's just a thing. Like we had
Yeah,
tacos the other day at work, and we have
yeah.
a lot of vegetarians. So we
Yeah.
have vegetarian.
Yeah,
But
Yeah.
a lot of times you don't see
what's in there?
the cycle,
Yeah.
I guess.
But if you have a gardener, you look at a garden and you see all the animals going through there,
Yeah.
Oh,
picking stuff
yes.
over, stuff they like, stuff they don't like.
Yes.
And then when it gets
Yeah.
the middle of winter, when there's nothing to eat, they start eating the stuff they
Yeah.
don't like to
They
eat.
did.
Yeah.
Oh, isn't that the truth? Yes.
People that never, I mean, we all probably grew up around gardens, but the other people probably never see a garden.
Mhm.
So what if we go back to Genesis and look back at that tree of knowledge of good and bad? The tree of knowing good and bad.
Hmm.
So it's Genesis chapter 3, verses 1 through 6. So in this, human beings eat of the tree, and now they've eaten of the tree of knowing good and bad. What does that mean human beings are now capable of?
Sin.
Bad.
They're
And
capable
good.
of knowing bad,
Knowing.
Right.
knowing
The famous
nakedness,
picture.
knowing right from wrong, what does that mean they can do? Beyond,
They can do bad
they
or
can
good.
do bad or
Murder
good.
people. They start murdering people
Make
pretty fast.
choices.
They can make choices
Mhm.
that are good or bad.
Free
Cain's
will.
name, Cain, who
Yeah.
commits the first murder with
Mhm.
Abel. Cain's name is related to the word spear.
Mm,
And
Mm.
so in ways humanity moves into like creating death upon one another and bringing death to one another, bringing bad upon one another and upon creation.
Can you
But all
bring?
of those are sins.
What's that?
All of those are sins.
All of those are sins, and
Before that,
of this.
and they
know it?
know their sins. That's the
Know it.
problem. They now know what is right and wrong. So for the first time, they have to make choices.
Mhm.
Yep.
Yeah.
Yeah. And so now they're capable of making these choices, making sins, doing sins because they can make the choice of doing sins. But what did God create creation to do?
To live and be in a garden of Eden. Boy, did they screw it up.
Even just to live, to
Yeah.
sustain life. That's what the tree is created for. That's what all elements of creation, to
Mhm.
sustain life. And then by eating this tree, they've introduced a concept that removes life.
Mhm.
Why do they have to be a tree?
But do you think God had anything to do with that?
That's a thought provoker.
Did God set that up?
That is a thought
If
provoker.
God's the one in charge
Yeah, but he gave us free will.
through that story.
Because of that story, yeah.
Well, I guess they did have free will before because they chose to eat the.
Right.
They cho-
It's not like they didn't have choice before.
right.
Can I
That's so
take a
confusing.
picture of your purse?
Yes, you can.
I'm sorry. My daughter crochets and
Oh,
she would
I
love
wish I
that.
could crochet. It's well worn, well
It
loved.
doesn't matter.
So then if
He
we go
really,
back,
he really made people to be different than all the other things that he had created.
That's true.
Yeah, yeah.
Animals don't make those kinds of I mean, we have the ability to choose.
although the
And we
story
have the
doesn't,
ability not to choose.
Story what?
or did every living thing have that ability to choose and not to choose, and human beings were the ones who ate from the tree and the others didn't?
Why did God set that up? Okay.
Well,
Like,
God
how
said
do
don't
we know
eat
the
from it.
squirrels
if
didn't eat
God
from
did.
that tree?
Maybe the squirrels chose not to. There were plenty of other trees.
I don't know. God only told the humans not to, though. There's no stories about God telling them.
But the others don't have the brains that God gave us. They eat, they eat the same things. They don't do this. They don't do the same things. We make the choices. We can make choices. Animals can't.
Innocent, thank you.
I've seen some pretty darn smart monkeys, and my dog has me trained very well.
Right, but there's always a little there that you cannot get around.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know about
Yeah.
monkeys. Okay, I better go.
Oh, I've got one question for you.
So
Thank you.
thank you.
Fascinating as always.
Now that humanity has eaten from the tree of knowledge of good and evil and is capable of doing these bad deeds and harming, now capable of causing death, what would happen if human beings ate from the tree of life, which would make them self-sustaining?
Self-sustaining?
Yeah, just like we talked about at the beginning, where the trees are self-sustaining because
Yeah.
they produce their own seed, and it's kind of an
So
endless.
They've eaten from the knowledge of good and evil.
Yep,
And then the tree of life, they would be gods.
they would be gods. Yep, and also, I wonder if too, the bad and the capacity for evil would also be a part of that endless cycle then as well.
Mm,
Yeah.
probably.
If also had eaten from the tree of life,
Mhm.
then that
It
means
probably would multiply.
evil could never have had an end
Yeah, could
because it
multiply
also
back.
would have been self-sustaining.
But the big thing is that we have to know, because we have to choose. Animals, they don't choose. It's just there. So we're the only people that can choose evil.
Right, and God, according to the story in Genesis 1, and to put creation outside. In Genesis, the second story, put creation outside of the garden so that they could not eat of the tree of life.
Mm-hmm.
Right.
Which would be something that would be done not to take away something from humanity, but to protect all of creation.
Yes.
But it wasn't until Jesus came that life became eternal.
Well, I think there's a lot of ways to answer that question.
A lot
But I
of
think we have
ways.
to go even further to look into the next tree of life. And that's at the end of the Bible in Revelation. And so if we jumped way ahead to Revelation, and there's another tree of life in the Revelation. I think this mentions it in Revelation 21.
Oh, the new heaven and the new earth.
Yep.
Okay.
Mention though. Revelation 22, verse 1 and 2.
Tree of life, yeah.
Yeah. Then the angel showed me the river of water of life, bright as crystal, flowing from the throne of God and of the Lamb through the middle of the street of the city. On either side of the river is the tree of life, with its 12 kinds of fruit, producing its fruit each month. And the leaves of the tree are for the healing of the nations.
Hmm.
So it tells us about the tree of life. And then a little further, it tells us how to eat of the tree of life. So it opens up this thing, this tree that we've been locked out from in the Genesis story in chapter 22, verse 14. Blessed are those who wash their robes, or in other ancient authorities read, blessed are those who do God's commandments, so that they will have the right to the tree of life and may enter the city by the gates.
Mhm.
So when can humans eat of the tree of life?
Which verse is that? Because I'm not
14.
the same.
14.
14.
Yeah, when they live a righteous life, when they've removed the evil or removed the bad, removed the death, then they can move into life. And that seems is the ultimate goal of this major theme stated throughout the Bible with the tree of life, is calling humanity to life, to be sustainers of life, and to live fully into that.
Mhm.
And they're not alone in that. So they're not in isolation here. So the tree of life is also in other ancient Near Eastern cultures too.
Oh, yeah.
And so we've got the trees are huge in Egypt,
Mhm.
to the west of this area, that the sky goddess Nut actually is portrayed as a tree at times that gives fruit, water, and life.
Mhm.
And the Egyptian kings are portrayed as trees.
Mhm.
It's like the best Egyptian kings would be portrayed as trees. And then in Assyria to the north and Babylon to the east, trees are associated with the gods as like a symbol of blessing from the gods. And the kings who channel or mediate the power of the gods are actually painted as trees and portrayed as trees, or portrayed as caretakers of trees. So this is imagery that is all over the area of the ancient Near East.
I would.
The other thing is that trees were something that people could eat to survive.
Mhm.
You know, the fruit of the trees was something that they would be able to use. And because at that time, I don't know if they could kill animals, you know what I mean?
Mhm.
Yeah, it provided lots of food. Also, in this time, in this area of the world, so there'd be trees along waterways, but most of the land is pretty barren. And the places where you have trees are at elevation. And so the trees actually exist up, like up on the mountains is where you would have forests and where you have trees. And you wouldn't have them.
And it would be where the water is.
Right.
That would be because the trees wouldn't be able to grow if there wasn't any water. So it would be a place that you should be able to find water.
Mhm.
Yep.
My niece once wrote us it was her Christmas letter. And she said, we had to chop down the tree that when my mother visited us last summer, hugged as the original tree of life.
Oh.
And I could just see Liz doing that. My sister-in-law was a very interesting woman, a very interesting woman. I just loved her bits and pieces. But she'd do something like that. She'd go hug a tree. This is the tree, original tree of life. I could see her doing that. She was a sweetheart.
Any other thoughts on Tree of Life? This major
This was
school.
a lot. I mean, things I had never, ever thought about before. The parallels are fascinating.
And we just touched the
Yeah,
tip of the branch.
yeah, yeah, yeah.
Is there any place that doesn't have trees other than you know, maybe the really cold spots in Antarctica?
Mary said Mars.
I meant on Earth.
Parts of like,
Well, we might as well say Pluto. It's not even a planet anymore.
Mary, what were you gonna say?
only that, you know, and there are places like Newfoundland and there are places in the Arctic, extreme Arctic area too. That just,
Well, I was saying. I
and
had
even
said
though
the
it
Arctic
feels
area.
like we live here and have no tree, we have a different perspective about a tree. If you've lived a long time in this part of North Dakota, trees are very precious.
Yes.
But I just think it's interesting that trees are the one thing that gives life, you know, that isn't an animal, you know,
Yeah.
and they grow pretty much everywhere that people can live. People can't live in Antarctica
Right.
or
It's
very
interesting
long.
too, just even like the structure of our bodies, like our lungs, the bronchial, it looks like a tree
Mhm,
that like, inside look like a tree too.
mhm.
Yeah, the parallels they are fascinating.
I think if the writers of the Bible had been able to see the inside of people's lungs and know what it looks like, they'd been like, that's what we were talking about. We didn't know that. But there's more evidence there.
Lungs to breathe, lungs for life.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, this was great. This was really very, very interesting. So glad I came tonight.
Glad you came too.
Yeah.
Well, thank you, everybody.
I'm glad you
There's-
mentioned it.
Yeah, you're welcome. There's so much more on the trees as well. But next week, we're gonna look at a new theme and the major theme of the Bible, and we're gonna be looking at temple as a major theme of the Bible. And so that's,
Is there anything
For
I
me,
need to read or something?
I don't have any homework that you need to read.
Okay, I just
the thing
didn't-
I
I wanted
to
to
mention
make sure that I didn't come totally unprepared next week.
Nope, you're not unprepared. For this week, if you would like to have any assignment, I would recommend reading through the Genesis stories again and reading through Revelation again and looking specifically for how this book is bookended with the trees. And then we'll talk about temple next time. Well, thank you, everybody.
Thank you.